Guys, gals, non-binary pals, welcome back to another episode of the Seaglass Perspective. I'm Vincent Covelli, one of your co-hosts, also joined by another co-host, as always, Chris Nackos. Chris, how are we doing on such a lovely day?
Yeah, April 1st. It's a beautiful day. We're finally out of winter. Hopefully it lasts so we don't dip back into it next week. Little rain in the forecast, but I'll take it if it's going to be 70 and 80 degrees.
I'll take it, and no jokes for today. Today is super serious. We're not joking. It's a nice day out. It'd be a really mean joke if we joked that it was not nice out. We'd be playing ourselves on that one. But otherwise, I'm glad to hear. It's in the spirit of mental health. This is kind of where I feel like a lot of people start to kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Lift the veil, maybe, in a sense, of a lot of their depressive symptoms, a lot of their anxiety symptoms, because a lot of people are cooped up and things like that, which also has some interplay into our topic today, which, primarily we're going to be talking about what is depression. I mean, that's what I'm staring at here, but that's, we can easily just say, well, what's depression? That's, I'm sad, I'm crying, I'm laying in bed all day. And, a lot of people experience those similar symptoms and experiences and things like that. But maybe we can give it a little bit more attention, right? A little bit more of not like a step-by-step, but I'll maybe say classifications.
Well, yeah, we talked last week in the anxiety episode and a little bit in the emotions episode about the importance of being able to label things. And while labels can be used in a judgmental way and so on and so forth in a negative way, if we can't describe what we're feeling, we can't describe what we're experiencing, it's hard to figure out what to do with it, what to do about it. So, depression is one of those words that is very much in the commonly used, right? Yeah. On a fairly regular basis, I hear people talk about how they're feeling depressed today or things like that. And it's actually, last episode we talked about the distinction between, an issue or dysfunction that we're experiencing and a diagnosis, right? Two kind of levels of what we experience. And depression is one of the ones that really hits that point where we use the term depressed to mean kind of sad, kind of down, whatever. But in terms of a clinical diagnosis, it means quite a bit more.
Yes.
So, depression, like I said, is really fitting for that. How do you describe it? How do you define it? What do you mean when you say it? And what do you do about it once it's there?
Yeah, and, going back even to the last podcast episode, I think it was last episode where I was kind of talking about this, where people, especially on the internet and TikTok and, etc., will say, I'm depressed or I have OCD and all these things. And then you ask, well, what are you experiencing in that? And then they say, well, at least for OCD, all my pens have to be in just the right order. And, it's not the end of the world if they're not in the right order, but, I just need them to be neat. And I say, well, that's not OCD. That's just
anal retentive.
Anal retentive, yeah.
Yep.
And same thing with depression, though, right? I think, depression comes in levels, right? I mean, even in, good thing I pulled this out before, even in the DSM-5, we have all these specifiers for, moderate, severe, with psychotic features, without psychotic features, mixed presentation, all these different things. And we all experience them to one degree or another, but, when I say I'm depressed, you could have major depressive disorder, severe. You could have a single episode of major depression. There's a lot going on with it. And as even before the episode, as we were talking about the script for the episode and things like that, I'm staring at this acronym, or I guess maybe you'd call it a mnemonic.
I have no idea. It's just a thing a professor said once to me in college, and I was like, that stuck. I don't remember the teacher's name. I couldn't remember what class it was, but the word stuck for whatever reason.
Well, probably because it sounds so silly. SIGECAPS?
Yeah, SIGECAPS.
Yeah?
SIGECAPS. Now, at some point in the future, once we've knocked out a whole bunch of these episodes and we have production value, like that word would like appear over my head in an arc, right? SIGECAPS. We're
Yes.
still low budget, so that's not happening. You're just gonna have
No.
to bear with us. And for those of you who are just listening, it doesn't really matter.
No.
SIGECAPS, it was, like I said, something a professor said when we were talking about depression, is just a real quick, like, maybe it is a mnemonic device. I like that. We're going to go with that.
Yeah.
Real quick way of kind of like, these are the symptoms of depression, and you know, kind of what you're experiencing, the combination of which, that'll tell you where you're at. You know, and as we were saying, like, when you hear the word depression, that can mean a lot of different things. Right? And a simple way of kind of denoting that is lowercase d depression versus capital D depression.
Yeah.
The capital D, the diagnosis, the lowercase d, what we experience on a regular basis. Hopefully not too regular basis. But
no. I've always kind of explained it like, you know, you could be depressed. Like there's almost, maybe not in the DSM terms and stuff like that, but I've always interpreted it as you can be depressed, and then you can experience major depressive disorder, right? Like, you know, I can be depressed for a week. That, you know, a common thing is that people, very common with burnout, for instance, let's say. Right, you can be depressed from burnout. You can be tired, exhausted. You know, you can explain or experience a lot of these things through SIGECAPS, which it's not just a term. We'll go through what they all mean and things like that. And then you can experience, you know, major depressive disorder, where, you know, I think it's for the past 2 weeks there's
like
distinction.
With all the diagnoses, there's like a time specifier and an intensity level specifier, and you have to have 6 out of the 9, you know, criteria and things like that. But yeah, I think major depressive disorder for a depressive episode, it's 2 weeks. Then there's something we'll talk about a little bit later called systemic disorder, which is like 2 years. So like, you know, when we're talking diagnoses, like all of those stipulations, all of those things have to be looked at. And, you know, while it's really helpful in terms of determining whether or not, you know, someone would benefit from medication, whether or not, like, the type of treatment someone needs to engage, on a day-to-day basis, we're not necessarily thinking of it with all of those criteria in mind. Right? We're just talking about how we're feeling, how we're experiencing life. And that acronym, mnemonic device, right? Again,
Mnemonic.
Visualize it above here. SIGECAPS.
Reading Rainbow.
It's the SpongeBob meme. I can't remember what he says in the episode.
Imagination.
Yep.
I grew up on that. I should know that.
Oh, I love that show. So, SIGECAPS, right? SIGECAPS. The first S stands for sleep, right? Usually a disruption in our sleep. Sometimes it's an insomnia issue where people are struggling to sleep. I tend to find that that's more related to like anxiety. My mind's going. I can't stop thinking about X, Y, and Z, so I'm having difficulty falling asleep. Some people will wake up early, hours before their alarm clock, because they had a bad dream or a nightmare, and it shook them, so now they can't fall back to sleep, whatever it might be. More often than not, it's, I don't know if hypersomnia is a word. I've used it a whole bunch.
I was thinking that in my brain. I'm like, this would be hypersomnia, but that doesn't sound right. We'll stick with it.
Yeah, I use it in session. It's fine.
Yeah.
But an increased need for sleep. And it's not uncommon that a client will describe to me, they'll sleep 12 hours, and then 2 hours later they go down for a nap. Right?
Yep.
They're just physically exhausted. I have one client who says he's painfully tired. Right?
It's pretty succinct, actually.
Yeah, and it's a great description, because when he says it that way, I'm like, I could see that. I know what you're talking about. And again, important distinction to make, right? Like when we're feeling depressed, like we're looking at capital D depression, this symptom is an easy one where it's not you had a long week at work, you haven't been sleeping well, and then on Saturday you sleep 12 hours or something like that, right? This is a consistent couple of weeks, 5 days a week type of thing, right? But yeah, that increased need for sleep, it hits people. Some people experience that, some don't.
And even as a preface, I think everybody experiences these. Everything that we're going to be discussing in. I giggle when I say it now. SIGECAPS. Like, for instance, with the sleep, I've met clients who have insomnia and just running with it. I've also had clients who experience hypersomnia, where they sleep too much, they don't sleep enough. And I think it'll become a little bit more evident as we talk with the rest of them about the rest of these topics that it's all cyclical, right? One of the things we'll talk about is guilt, and already I can see the connection about sleep and guilt and avoidance and all these different things, and how this just piles into one big.
The better visual might be that SIGECAPS is written in a circle because all the symptoms play off of each other.
Yeah,
and they all link to each other. And yeah, they all kind of play off of one another. So SIGECAPS.
One of the.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh nope. SIGECAPS in big bold letters across the thing. We'll get SIGECAPS. We'll get. Oh my God! Why am I blanking out on his name? Bongo?
Oh, now I'm from Inside Out.
This is your movie, man.
Oh no, it'll come to me in 5 minutes.
In the middle of a discussion, and
now you said bongo, so that's stuck in my head. I don't think that's right though.
but we'll get a plush. We'll work on it. And actually, the next component of SIGECAPS that was, especially when I was working in the urgent care setting, doing a lot of biopsychosocial assessments, was the gauging somebody's interest, or interest / I'll even say motivation, right? I think that one and the same. Motivation to engage in, whether that's ADLs, work, life, and oftentimes anything, right? Even to get up in the morning, which is related to sleep, because then that's why people continue to sleep more, because they have low motivation to do things. But oftentimes the big question would be, for me, is, what's your motivation to engage in different things? And they're like, nothing. And if we want to get really clinical, then we call it anhedonia, right? The lack of pleasure, interest in doing things. And this is oftentimes a big marker. And this is, once again, and then it becomes a differential diagnosis with burnout and things like that. But
yeah, it's one of those easy to notice signs, particularly with stuff that a person enjoys. If you like knitting and crocheting and you haven't picked up the yarn or needles, I think they're called, in 3 weeks. Usually that's the first time where someone goes, "Oh, you haven't been doing that lately," and you're like, "I have not been, no." We just don't feel motivated to get up and do things. We don't feel motivated to get the chores done. You normally do laundry 2 days a week, and you've only been doing it 1 day a week for the past couple of weeks, and it's piling up. Mail, not so much a problem anymore, but that used to be a very big symptom, where people would talk about the mail stacking up on the table right inside their front door. And you could gauge how much a person was struggling based on the pile of mail. I guess voicemail, mailbox, and inbox and unread messages is the sign now.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
you just
you should see my amount of unread text messages. But it's all from spam. It's all from spam numbers and here's your code to get into this account and stuff like that. So it's a majority of that stuff. But on a serious note, you are right though, in that oftentimes it'd be you're not checking your mailbox, your PO box, whatever. And nowadays is are you checking your emails? Are you checking your phone, your text messages, phone calls, voicemails, things like that? Because now we live in this day and age of digital technology and things like that, and communication.
It's a general kind of apathy that kind of sets in.
Which I think actually flows very well into the next component of SIGECAPS, which is guilt, right? Because once again, it now kind of becomes cyclical in the sense that, maybe you don't check the mail after a certain point because now you start to feel guilty and you start to avoid it because there's so much mail piled piled upon all this. I used to work with a client who he'd always tell me I got this massive stack of mail sitting on my dinner table, and I'm too afraid to touch it. I'm too anxious to even get to it. And I would talk to him a little bit about it, and it's that there's so much of it. Where do you start?
Becomes overwhelming.
And it becomes overwhelming, right? And so then now that guilt kind of starts to set in a little bit of like, well, I'm not going to do this. Like, I feel guilty that I'm not doing this, but then the shame starts to kick in from the guilt that says, I'm too shameful to do this. I feel too bad to even look at this. I've been neglecting it too long. Like, it's done.
And that's one of those feelings, emotions, right, that, I say it's a good thing, right? I want my kids to feel guilty when they do something wrong because that shows they have a moral compass, right? But on the flip side of that, our guilt, while it might be valid in some sense, when we're talking about, like, whether it's lowercase d or capital D depression, like, it's beyond what it probably should be, right? Where a person feels like excessively guilty, where they'll feel guilty and they can't describe why. And they'll say, well, these things are playing out. I'm not being consistent. I'm dropping stuff at work. I'm not hanging out with my friends. I haven't answered a text message in a week. Like, I feel bad about that. But I feel so bad about it that it's debilitating. Right?
Yeah.
And that's where that guilt is starting to become problematic.
And not to run through these super fast or anything, but every time we talk about one, I already start to think about the next component, how it just interrelated, right? Where, you get this guilt for not talking to people, not responding to text messages, voicemails, things like that. And do you even have the energy to do that?
Yep.
The physical, emotional, mental energy to pick up a phone, text people, call people. That's something that I've experienced when I've experienced depression. Like, I check my phone on the other side of the room, and that's it.
Don't want to touch it.
Don't even want to touch it. Not interested.
It's the emotional kind of, what do they call that? Counterpart to the physical sleep issue. Right? We feel physically exhausted, and then we also feel emotionally exhausted, emotionally worn out, tired, done, not feeling it, whatever it might be.
That's okay. We have post-production for this.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Did you?
I just saw the text, the chat.
It's okay. No, I realized I had my sound machine on the whole time. I don't know if you could even hear that.
I was wondering what that was. I was like, oh, that's just feedback on the mic.
Maybe we'll keep this in at this point and just laugh it off. But
yeah, we'll see how it looks.
Yeah, we'll see.
So we were talking about the emotional energy, right, and the lack of it. And that's where, like, that apathy can come in as well. It kind of feeds back into that interest piece where we're just burnt out. You don't have the bandwidth for anything. We become pretty easily triggered, where, like, any stressor is the straw that breaks the camel's back. Because we're just emotionally burnt out and exhausted. And the more emotionally burnt out and exhausted we are, the less likely we are to be able to concentrate. And that's the C, right? SIGEC for concentration. Usually a complete lack thereof. I've never met a depressed person who is incredibly focused. So everything takes just a little bit more effort, a little bit more difficulty staying on task, staying focused, staying engaged.
Yep. And it's actually interesting as we talk about concentration. As we talk about SIGECAPS, I reflect so much on my previous jobs and the things that I've seen working at the urgent care more specifically. And I used to have a lot of people come in for, we never did ADHD testing because that's more neuropsychological, things like that. We never just willy-nilly prescribed stimulants because we didn't prescribe controlled substances like that. But I'd always have a lot of people come in and say, I can't focus, I have a hard time just doing things, motivation, all these different things. And then once they kind of finish talking about their component of it, I start to ask, more about the more along the lines of SIGECAPS, you know, sleep, interest, guilt, energy. Like, yeah, you might have concentration issues and motivation issues, but what does that look like? What does the rest of your life look like? Because I'm not willing to bet that, you know, this is something that just kind of came on, right? Most people who have ADHD or things like that, it starts so young and early. And as a, I know ADHD testing and ADHD diagnoses are a hot topic among the internet and mental health and things like that. As a preface, please, if you think you have ADHD, I encourage you, all rights, please go get tested. But it is something we have to parse out, right? That's why these things can be differential diagnoses, right? That's why we call them that, because things look so similar, but they might not be the same.
And that's why, like, you know, when we talk about anything, when we talk about any mental health concern or anything like that, we're talking about the idea of, like, flesh it out, talk it through. Because, yes, concentration might be the thing that's impacting work and you're not staying focused during, you know, meetings and stuff like that. And it really is on a regular basis where someone will kind of present one symptom and go, well, does this mean I have this? Or does this mean I'm struggling with this? And I'll go, well, tell me about everything else. And then we go, well, actually, in the context of everything else, you're probably struggling with some depression. You're probably feeling anxious. You're probably feeling, maybe you just hate your job, honestly. And that's why you can't focus at work.
Much more common than I thought entering the field.
Yeah, you become jaded it's corporate America. But yeah, so concentration, that's one of those signs and symptoms that can be very easily misconstrued for something else. So SIGECAPS, SIG, we should have a ticker, again, production value. There'll be a ticker up here that says, like, that's the 15th time someone said SIGECAPS. You guys will all be saying in your sleep. I might be able to do it.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, we'll figure it out.
Count SIGECAPS before you fall asleep.
Yeah, it'll put you to sleep eventually.
Yeah.
So SIGECAPS, SIGECA, stands for appetite. Some kind of change in appetite. For some people, you know, the term eating your feelings very much applies. But on the flip side of that, I've also known a lot of people who just lose their appetite, right? They just don't feel like eating. I have clients who on a regular basis will say they kind of like realized at 1 p.m. that they haven't eaten anything today. And it's just for lack of desire, right? And again, go ahead.
Oh, well, and then once again, it all loops back to the rest of it, right? You know, the interest, the motivation to even eat. You know, like you had said, you know, by 1 o'clock, they haven't even eaten anything because they just don't want to. They don't feel the need to. Or, you know, even with the energy, right? If you got to cook, you're not like if you're depressed, more of you're not doing it. And it's even hard to DoorDash, you know, or Uber Eats, or pick your favorite meal delivery service. Most people don't even want to do that, and that's one. Then they start to feel guilty.
Yep, that was one that you can tell what generation I'm part of, right? Like, where I had never even considered that as something, right? And then I had a client, you know, a bunch of years, like before COVID, who I think at one point he tallied up his year's worth of DoorDash orders, and it was like thousands of dollars because he just never wanted to cook, right? And he could track the pockets of time when he was depressed based on the number of orders and the amount of money he spent in that month.
Fascinating.
And it literally became a tool where we were like, well, how much did you order this month? How much did you order last month? Oh, well, there's a change there. Is that it, whether it's for the good or the bad? So yeah, again, like appetite, it's just kind of like a simple symptom, right? Either you have it or you don't. But then it interlinks with all of the other things, right? Yeah. And as we continue to move forward, right? So SIGECAPS, one more time. SIGECAP stands for the word. I usually will just say physical, but psychomotor is the clinical term. I think it's a clinical term. I don't know. It sounds fancy.
I think.
But basically, it's kind of like a slowed up. Usually, people describe it as dragging through their day, Like I had to drag myself out of bed. I had to drag myself into the shower. I had to drag myself into the car. I had to drag
Yeah.
myself into, right? It's just not necessarily just tired, but like you're just slowed up, you know?
It's like that. How do I want to explain this? Like even like doing your ADLs, for instance, right? Like I think that falls into the psychomotor component of this, where you don't want to take a shower, you're not brushing your teeth, you're not putting deodorant on, you're not doing, I don't know. Actually, it does kind of fall back into appetite, where
Yep.
you don't want to cook, you don't want to clean, you are so tired that you don't have the concentration, which then affects your motor skills, and almost kind of like you just feel like a slug, right? You're just like getting through the day, like waiting for whatever time it is that your day's over, right? Whether you work at 12, you work 8 hours, 9 to 5, you're just like staring at the clock until 5 o'clock, just
Can't wait to hit the
grudging
couch.
yourself. Yeah. Which I think most of us, honestly, we like hitting the couch at the end of the day, right? But more often than not, for somebody who might not be as depressed, like we can stay focused and concentrated on our day-to-day work things, right? We feel the motivation to do that. If our only motivation is to say, I just want this to be done, I just want to hit the couch, like maybe time to re-examine some of this a little bit.
Again, you just kind of you look at the whole picture, right? You look at everything at once, and you say, okay, well, if it's just this, then maybe you're not struggling all that much. But when it's kind of interacting with 5 of the other 8 things, or 5 of the other 7 things, now we're getting a better picture.
Yeah.
And to round that out,
Go ahead.
so to round that out, SIGECAPS, right? SIGECAPS. The final S stands for social,
Oh
right?
my god, we got there.
Well, again, we have to count how many times we said it. If you want to throw in the comments,
Yes.
if you're listening, how many times we said it. So the final S stands for social, usually a lack thereof, right? A lot of times when we're struggling, when we're stressed out, when we're overwhelmed, when we're feeling sad or depressed, or we're dragging through our day, the idea of going out with friends, or cooking a meal for me and my partner and sitting it down together is just out there. And that's one of those ones where a lot of times people will start therapy because their partner suggested it. Their partner pushed it because you're just not as engaged as you are normally. You're just not there when I come home. You don't seem to care anymore. You're disengaged, things like that. So it's that social aspect that is noticed by people around us.
I can't tell you how many clients I've had that have come to me in the initial assessment and say, my wife wanted me to come, my partner wanted me to come, I'm depressed, I don't really know what that means, but they think I'm depressed. And then we go through the checklist and, pretty much everything in SIGECAPS, and it's ding ding, they got it.
Yeah.
It's not a test to pass, but they passed.
Yeah, passing might be a weird word for that, but it really is one of those things where, our network can sometimes see something in us that we haven't seen yet, right? Maybe we haven't reflected, maybe we don't have the insight, maybe we just haven't caught what's going on, but the people around us have noticed a social decline or a reduction in it, like how often you want to go out, how often you want to talk about things. And it turns into that mild to maybe even significant isolation.
Yep. And, that's why I've had a lot of clients too who also oftentimes we'll talk maybe further down the line, a couple sessions in, and, after rapport building and just getting the lowdown and all, they say, well, how do I cure this? And I say, one, good luck. There's finding a cure. If I had a cure, I would have, I always say, if I had a magic wand to bonk you over the head and fix all this, one, I'd be out of business. And two, I'd probably have done it myself. But I
have
can't.
Dr. Phil money by now, if I had that answer.
I wish. I mean, I'd like to do it a little bit more ethically than Dr. Phil has ever done, though.
Maybe, perhaps.
But, a lot of them will say, what do I do? And I say, well, what does your social support look like? what are you doing to re-engage yourself with the rest of the world? And because obviously SIGECAPS is more than just social, but I think social is a good place to start because it gets you around people. I mean, if you're surrounded by a bunch of depressed people, then maybe everybody else sitting on the pity pot together. Yeah, you might feel it. But
it's the thing that we don't have to move the whole mountain for, right? It's not all on us. If I can get myself around people who I can open up to and who I can tell I'm really struggling, and that might be all I need to say is I'm struggling right now. And then if we got the right people around us, they'll come and lift us up, right?
Yes.
I don't have to be in charge of the whole thing. And honestly, that question of what do I do here, we go through SIGECAPS as a way of kind of diagnosing or identifying or labeling depression. Well, it's also the guidelines of how to manage depression and how to come out of it. Just all those things that you're struggling with, do them, right?
Yeah.
So if you're sleeping too much and you feel like you have to drag yourself out of bed, drag yourself out of bed, right?
Yep.
If you aren't engaging your hobbies anymore, well, go make a plan to engage them, right? You bring in the social aspect by you make the plan to engage your hobbies with someone who also engages those hobbies, right?
Yep.
The more active we are, the less guilty we'll feel, right? A body in motion stays in motion. Once we get moving, sometimes the motivation just kind of comes with it, and the energy level starts to perk up, right? We start to feel a bit more focused and on point, all those types of things.
I think there are strategies that we can implement like we had just said, all these different things, body in motion stays in motion, do all these different things. But, for instance, if you're oversleeping and you find it's impossible to drag yourself out of bed and you're just hitting the alarm, throw your phone on the other side of the room. I would assume most people utilize their phone as an alarm clock nowadays. Mm-hmm. Is that like having a physical one outdated?
So for my son, my 15-year-old son who struggles to get up in the morning, we found an alarm that I can hear across the house that has a little puck that you put under the pillow and it vibrates intensely to shake him awake. And that's set for one time, and then 5 minutes later we got him another alarm that sits on the floor and is on two wheels and will ride around his room going off. And usually that one gets him out of bed. So,
man, again, I could have really used that in high school. Holy crap. All right.
Oh, yeah, it mostly works. It mostly works. Sometimes it doesn't.
There's that for sleep, right? Or for something that I think about with depression too is like goal setting, right? Because oftentimes people who are experience depression find things to be very overwhelming, right? I have this, for instance, the client that I used to have with the stack of mail on his table, and he said there's too much. I oftentimes would just, one of the recommendations I would make is, start by hitting one at a time. Mm-hmm. Just one. Make it a goal once per day to open one letter of mail. It's not a whole lot. It may seem overwhelming, but in the context of it all, it's really not. Right? We give you a slow but easy. Steady. Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty easy, right? Yeah. So, setting manageable goals like that. If you have a hard time cooking, make one meal a day. Mm-hmm. Even if it's box mac and cheese, who cares? Just do it. I hate to reminisce about old Shia LaBeouf because I don't know if you've seen him in the news lately. He's not doing super great. Yeah. But the do it, like just
that was a hell of a meme. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Antiquity nowadays.
And this is where I start to show my age because I hear you say do it, and I think back to the Ben Stiller, Owen Wilson, Starsky and Hutch movie. And at some point, Ben Stiller is doing a character, and he just says, do it. Go watch it. It was a delightful movie.
You're not talking Zoolander, right?
No, Starsky and Hutch. It was one of his less popular ones, but it was in the pantheon of Ben Stiller greats. Starsky and Hutch, anyone who wants to go see a 2000s movie, go watch it.
The Ben Stiller cinematic universe. All right, I'm in
It's
it.
pretty far reaching. It is. Yeah.
But I think importantly, like these all build off of each other, right? Because let's say you start to set manageable goals for sleep, right? Or you start to set manageable goals for your appetite, right? Then your energy starts to slowly increase because you're setting manageable baselines throughout the week to put yourself at a new baseline for the next week going forward. So if you're already making one meal a day and throwing your phone on the other side of the room, who's to say you can't make a meal and a half, right? I don't know if you want to consider like a PB&J sandwich is like half a meal because it's just slathering PB&J on 2 slices of bread.
Honestly, that's where you double dip on it and you say make breakfast, right? Scrambled eggs aren't hard. Bacon can be a little complicated if you freeze it, but and it's not great in the microwave, to me anyway. But making yourself breakfast, right? Scrambled eggs and toast, right?
Yep.
You make yourself a diner breakfast. You have to get up a little bit earlier to get that done, and now you're knocked out the hypersomnia. You're addressing that. You're addressing the appetite piece of it, and you're engaging in purposeful activity. Again, that body emotion stays in motion really applies there, and this is all incredibly important to kind of consider because there's I made reference earlier to dysthymia and dysthymic disorder, right? There's kind of 2 scopes of depression in the diagnostic manual in terms of diagnoses. There's a major depressive disorder, which is really bad depression now, and it's been going on for a little while, right? Short period of time. And a lot of times that can come where either a person's just completely burnt out, right, and the bottom fell out, or something happened. Loss of a loved one, job loss, the one that tends to get people more recently in the past few years is not that they lost their job, but there's downsizing and now their job became twice as hard, right? They lost colleagues and now they're doing their jobs as well as their own, right? Something happened and it just, punched us in the gut, right? So we fall into a depressive episode. Dysthymia, dysthymic disorder, is more of a long-term, the word I like to use for that is a rut, where we're experiencing all these symptoms to a lesser intensity, but for a longer period of time. And, it's because it's not as intense, it might not be as noticeable. This one's the sneakier version of it.
For the way that I've always kind of, once again, interpreted it for myself is let's say major depressive disorder is just this big, blech. You just feel pardon the language, you kind of just feel like crap, like you're tired, exhausted, lack of motivation. Dysthymia and dysthymic tendencies, or some people, it used to be called, I believe, persistent depression disorder.
I think DSM-3. We're going back a bunch of years.
I'm going way back. way back. But dysthymia is often, I view it as it's
just a low grade meh. Right.
Diet depression.
Yep. Eeyore is the best example, right?
Yeah.
When my sister had a son, my nephew, she decorated his nursery in Winnie the Pooh theme, right?
Cool.
And someone in her family did phenomenal wood cutouts and painted them of each of the characters, and she gave everyone in the family a character and said, write something on the back. Right, for my nephew. And she handed me Eeyore, which that was phenomenal. Because finding a positive quote from Eeyore is incredibly difficult.
Well, you're the therapist. You can spin it.
Oh, I tried, and it took a while. But a lot of the things he would say in the stories and in the shows and movies were just so Debbie Downer. Rachel Dratch, a little ways back on SNL, the Debbie Downer character, right? There was one where he's floating down a river, sitting on an umbrella, and all the characters are trying to help him and grab the rope, we'll get you out of there, and he goes, why bother? I'm just gonna fall in again. Wah, wah, right?
Okay.
It's a very intense characterization of it, but that's dysthymia in a nutshell.
Almost and obviously I don't think this has to come with it at all, but and I could be incorrect in categorizing it like this, but almost like pessimistic, half like glass half empty kind of thing. Like, once again, what does it matter? I'm just going to fall back in anyway. Like,
Yep.
well,
The why
what does it
bother?
matter if I take a shower? For instance, maybe a more real life example. Like, what does it matter if I take a shower right now? I'm not going to take one for the next couple weeks. Or what does it matter if I don't brush my teeth? Like, it's just whatever,
We saw this a lot during the shutdown, during the COVID
Yeah.
shutdown, where like all of a sudden people weren't going out as much and things like that, and the depressive symptoms started to creep in, and like it became a what's the point? What's the purpose? Why bother?
Yeah.
And especially that form of depression, that like long-term low-grade depression, really, like you sum it up as like a disconnect from the strengthening factors, right? When we look at our lives, we have anchors, strengthening factors, things that prop us up, things that keep us moving, things that keep our momentum going, whether that's, a family member or friend who acts as our cheerleader, whether that's my own hobbies, the goals I set for myself, the things I'm looking forward to. I had a client who talked about, he used the phrasing peaks and valleys. And one of the things he would say is, I don't have a peak on the horizon. I need to find something. And for him, it was a vacation. And that's
Sure.
something that I've oftentimes told people is like, look, if you get 3 weeks vacation, use them, right? How
Yeah.
many people I've
You
known
got
who
it.
just like, they carry over, carry over, carry over. They're carrying over the same week of vacation for 7 years. Give yourself something to look forward to, right?
Right, like set events, set date nights with loved ones if you're in a relationship, or set set an event with friends, or I don't know, even do something. I don't know, go to a spa, like.
Yeah.
And I don't say that in a sense of like, I don't know, do something like, but also in the same vein though, kind of do something, right?
Oh, yeah.
Look to produce positive emotions for yourself. It's hard when you're depressed, right? I can very easily say, do things that make you happy when you're depressed, and a depressed person, looking at you blank in the face like, what?
Yep.
But
And
it's
that's,
right. That's a
yeah.
part of treatment for depression, right? Like being able to re-engage in parts that you have not enjoyed because depression has made you not enjoy them.
Yep. And that's one way to kind of think of it. And anger can be a tool, right? And being angry or upset can be a tool for at times. And I'll say to people, like, this is what depression has robbed of you. Go get it back,
Yes.
right? So when
Yeah.
people ask, well, what should I do to feel good? Well, you used to know what made you feel good. You've known what
Yeah.
your hobbies are. You've known the things that you enjoy doing. You've known the movies that make you laugh, or the books that make you feel good, or the people who you like to spend time with, right? Like, if you're asking me, I don't, what to do to feel good, depression robbed you of that. It took all those
Yes.
things that used to feel good and just, it took them away from you. And now you have to go get them back. Depression be damned, type of thing.
And even with dysthymia, one of the things we didn't even necessarily put it on on the script, so maybe unscripted, off the rails, real quick. Only because we're entering, what is it, the first actual week of spring?
Mhm.
I think something that's on a lot of people's minds, or hopefully not leaving a lot of people's minds, is seasonal affective depression, right? Or SAD, as most people will call it. And I think that's something that is, how do I want to put it? Not like looked down upon or anything like that per se, but people didn't give it as much credence in the
Yeah,
past.
it's said kind of flippantly, like, oh,
Yeah.
it's just the winter and things like that. But like, it if you are someone who likes to be outside and active, the winter will rob that of you, right? And
Yeah.
it's very easy to kind of fall into like kind of a depressed state. And that's one of the simplest bits of feedback I've ever give is like, in January, people are like, I missed the sun. All right, well, you have vacation time, flights are cheap, go
Yeah.
down south. I'm not a humidity fan, so Florida is never the go-to. But like
Not it, yeah.
Arizona was phenomenal, and the flight wasn't as bad as flights to Florida from Jersey. So
Man,
go figure.
a dry heat kind of guy. All right.
Yeah, it worked, man. I'm telling you, it was a difference, and I fully appreciated that. Um, but yeah, it's
Or
we're coming out of the winter. Daylight savings time is something that throws people for loops. With all of a
yeah,
sudden it's dark at 4 p.m. and thank goodness when it's not anymore. Um,
you know, I've had a lot of people come and say like, "Oh, thank God for um, what is it? Spring back or fall ahead,
spring
or
ahead,
is it spring
spring
ahead and
ahead,
fall
fall
back?"
back. Yep. Yeah.
Like people are like, "Oh, I'm getting an extra hour of sleep in the fall.
Hmm.
This is going to be great." And then I oftentimes I think the reality kind of sets in that you just get that extra hour of sleep for a night.
Yeah,
Was it
and then
really
it's
worth
just
it?
dark when you leave work
Yeah,
all week.
exactly.
Yeah,
But that really gets to
it's
people, you know, like
mhm.
they have a hard day, they have a hard week at work or hard day at work, and they come outside and it's absolutely pitch black. Where a lot of people want to leave work and see that the sun is shining and they hear the birds chirping and the chipmunks, you know, prancing around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And instead they get a dark parking lot.
I'm not. I haven't looked up the statistics, but I think Alaska has high rates of depression
Yeah,
because they have all of that
because it's
darkness.
dark.
Um, Although in the summer it's like sunny all day.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sure.
yeah, so there's
Oh,
a
yeah, I
trade-off
forgot.
there. But yeah, so when you're kind of thinking about like how you're feeling and things like that, when the term depression starts getting thrown around, like we've said throughout this episode, you want to look at the whole picture. You want to look at yourself holistically.
Yep.
SIGECAPS is a great little acronym, mnemonic device, right? SIGECAPS. Sleep, interest, guilt, energy, concentration, appetite, physical, or psychomotor, and social, right? Run through that list, see how you're feeling, see what you're experiencing. And if you're thinking about engaging a therapist or something like that, there is no greater gift that you can give to a therapist in the first session than being able to just boom, 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 boom. This is what I'm
Ah,
experiencing. This is why I'm here.
please.
Help me, Chris. And it's just
Yeah.
like, well, that's half of my
You
job
gave me.
today.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, that cut 20 minutes out of this session. So we can hit
Instead
the
of
ground running.
sitting for
Yeah.
5 sessions exploring, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what's wrong. And you're like, okay, there could be a bunch of different things. But one of the, for you, the viewer, yes, I'm pointing at you, the viewer, right now. Let us know what you guys have done. Well, not have done, but yeah, I'll say have
Yeah.
done. If and when you have experienced depression, because I don't want to go ahead and say our whole listening population has been depressed, but if you've ever experienced depression, a low point, a rut, just like feeling overall blah, what have you found to be helpful for you? I think one of the best things that we can do is share what has worked for others, right?
Hmm.
And obviously, we're all going to try the same thing, maybe in different little tweaks and variations. But I'm just interested in hearing how you guys handle your depression. Me, I socialize. I go out. I see friends. Once again, no secret. I play card games. I go out and play card games. I open shiny cardboard. I get pretty cards, and that makes me feel happy. But it also gets me re-engaged in the communities I very much so enjoy. It gets my brain thinking in a much different way to get my mind off of depression, things like that. And yeah, I'm just curious to see what everybody else thinks.
Yeah, and never hesitate to reach out. If you have any feedback, any questions in the comments section, you can also hit us up on the website, seaglasscounseling.com. You can find us on Facebook. Um, we thrive on connection. We as a
Yeah,
species, right? We do better when we're part of groups, when we're connected to other people. So, use this as a tool to kind of get connected and get some feedback. And, what Vincent was saying a minute ago. Half of my job, honestly, is just telling people what has worked for other people. Not necessarily for me, but yeah, I've had
yep,
these, X number of clients who did this. They went on meetup.com and they found a hiking group. I don't
yeah.
hike, but it didn't work for me, but it worked for a bunch of them. Maybe that'll work for you. So
Well, and
always be looking for
I
that
think
type of stuff.
I might have even mentioned this last session, last episode. Really goes to show that I'm a therapist last session.
Yeah.
But, once again, I think I might have mentioned this in a previous episode, but do I journal? No. Do I meditate? No. I like writing, and I like being to myself and thinking and stuff like that, but it's just not things I actively engage in. But I have plenty of clients in the past and present who have found these tools to be effective, right? So that is the angle I will approach this from. These are things that I don't necessarily engage in myself, but it doesn't mean it doesn't work, because I have plenty of other people who have done these things and have found great improvement from it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, just let us know what you guys think in the comments, and tell us what you do. But Chris, what are you thinking? I'm thinking want to go outside.
What I would find interesting is, over the course of the week after this podcast posts, write down in the comment section the number of times you found yourself saying the word SIGECAPS out loud. I'm actually really curious to see if we started a little worm in people's brains.
I'm gonna songify it in my own brain. I'm gonna walk around like SIGECAPS, ooh, SIGECAPS. I don't know. We'll workshop it. Yeah, I'll figure it out.
Music video to follow.
Yes, but I think with everybody that being said, I think this is a good place to wrap up for the day. Yeah. Next episode will be our 5th episode, and we'll be talking more about emotional regulation. I mean, also regulation too, in a sense too. I can't talk. Jeez. Emotional regression in practice, and how that affects our other various different points of our life. But until then, be on the lookout for the episode. Be on the lookout for our next posted episode. Mm-hmm. And until then, guys, gals, non-binary pals, this has been Vincent and Chris in the Seaglass Perspective podcast, signing off. Take care, everybody.
All right.
Oh my God, I almost clicked leave. Holy crap.